If you're watching this video, you might be struggling with procrastination. Heck, you might be watching this video because you're procrastinating on something that you need to be doing, like preparing for an exam or finishing up that essay or doing one of the many chores that you've piled on over the week. I'm a psychologist, and I'd like to start by saying that procrastination isn't a result of a lack of skill or motivation, and it certainly doesn't mean that you're a screw up. I suspect a lot of you actually want to be doing the work. It's just for some reason or another, it's very hard to get started in that moment. So today I'm actually going to share a little bit more about the specific cycle that maintains procrastination and what are some strategies that hopefully get you out of the stuck mode and into the goal action oriented mode. So when it comes to procrastination, among the patients that I've seen, there's a fairly common stereotypical / prototypical sequencing of event that happens that leads to procrastination. So usually what happens to that person, there's a trigger event like, oh, I'm thinking about the work I have to do, the essay next week, or the test due tomorrow that I have to study for. And all of a sudden there's a scary thought that happens like, oh gosh, like what if I don't know what to do? What if I don't know how to get it done? What if I do it wrong? Or, if I'm thinking about how much work there is going to be, there's like 50 different steps. I have to do the research and the drafting, then the writing, and then finishing it and proofreading it. And all of a sudden it becomes this giant mountain of work that leads to a lot of distressing emotions and symptoms like anxiety, shame, guilt, all of those kind of aversive feelings, which then makes our brain go, I don't really like how I'm experiencing life right now, so I need to get away from this through distraction or through doing something else so that I can get rid of this immediate anxiety. So instead of going into problem-solving mode of doing the work, it goes into distraction mode of how do I just get rid of these sensations right now, which is of course great for short term, but not so great in a long-term perspective. And in some ways, procrastination begets more procrastination because the more that you're putting something off, the more anxious you're going to be the next time you think about it or you encounter it, and the more there's going to be a pull to distract yourself and get away from those aversive feelings. So we need to figure out some strategies to break out of this procrastination trap and into the doing good work track. So, as a cognitive behavioral therapist, I focus on three main elements that are all potentially key to getting out of this trap: the thoughts, the behaviors, as well as the emotions. So I'll talk about some strategies in each of these junctures to be able to hopefully get you doing a little bit more work. So let's start with the thoughts. Oftentimes we have thoughts during procrastination that makes it harder for us to engage in goal-oriented activities like, this is too much, I can't handle it, there's way too much work, I'm better off doing it later. And as you can imagine, some of these thoughts aren't really helpful in the context of being able to get you into doing the work. And instead, it makes it easier for you to kind of disengage and do something else. So one strategy that can be helpful is the use of cognitive restructuring. How can we use either coping statements or come up with thoughts that are more grounded in reality to help take us away from these very distressing, often catastrophic thoughts and ground ourselves in reality? So it might be saying, well, actually, I've been able to do really well in the past. Like, here are some examples of assignments that I managed to do. If I don't know something, I could certainly do a little bit of research first before I get started. Or, I don't have to do everything at once. Maybe today I'll just put 10 or 20 minutes doing some of the groundwork, doing some of the general preparation, and then tomorrow I can then get started. So these might be different things that might help to relieve some of the initial signs of distress and catastrophic thoughts with something that feels a little bit more balanced and rational. The next strategies revolve around our emotions or physical sensations kind of situated within the emotion. Like, for example, when we're anxious, we might notice our heart racing, our shortness of breath, we're kind of like taking really rapid breaths, feeling really tight. So the strategies surrounding the emotional side will be really helpful to be able to engage in certain practices to bring our fight or flight response down so that we don't go into avoidance mode, which is what anxiety tells us to do by procrastinating, but rather facing our fears and exposing ourselves to the thing that scares us by doing the work. And here you can kind of use a plethora of different strategies that work well for you. For some people, it might be worthwhile to do some diaphragmatic breathing, in for 4 counts through the nose, hold for a couple, out through the mouth for 6, and then repeating until you're starting to feel a little bit better. For others, they work well by splashing their face with cold water or, engaging in a little bit of muscle relaxation or meditation on YouTube, for example. All of those things can help to reduce our anxiety so that we feel more and more ready to approach rather than avoid. And the last piece is the behaviors. How do we get someone to go into approach mode rather than avoid mode? And one strategy I find often helpful is knowing that the first step is often the hardest one to take, where once a person gets started, it's actually quite easy to keep going. It's just that first step makes it really, really hard. So how can we make the first step the easiest step? And one way to do that is to break the task up into a way where you feel more and more confident about just taking that first step to say, you know what, like if I don't do this whole project, that's totally fine, but I'm just gonna open up my laptop and open up a few of the documents that are important for the assignment. And then maybe if you're comfortable reading the assignment instructions, that's great. But my goal right now is just to, get on my butt on the couch, bring in my laptop, open it up, and just turn to any document related to the assignment or exercise. That's it. Once I finish that, I'm gonna give myself the leeway, the compassion to say, I can stop for now. And oftentimes people keep on going. And in that way, oftentimes people notice like an intense amount of anxiety when they're kind of staring at the assignment, in which case you might even say to yourself, you know what, like I don't have to do anything, but just let me stay here in this kind of anxious situation to see what would happen. And it's almost like an exposure exercise where people think, oh, like I need to get out of this right now because I just feel so anxious, I feel so stupid, it feels like way too much. But even if you're not doing anything, you're just sitting with that distress, what you might notice is that your anxiety begins to calm down and your sort of wise mind or your cognitive side starts to activate and say, well, actually, maybe you can do this, or this might be an interesting idea. So once you get rid of that initial distress, whether it's with breathing or opening up your documents, whatever it might be, that your brain starts to work for you rather than against you. And of course, with all of these strategies, you don't have to just pick one. You might kind of sequence them together. Maybe start off with some breathing exercises, then use the cognitive strategies to come up with something that's a bit more, balanced and a little bit more coping related rather than catastrophizing, and then move into the SMART goal setting, quote unquote, of choosing something very specific to start off with, even if it's just reading one page of my next chapter or opening up the Word document and writing a few different ideas. And then if I want to stop at that point, I can stop. So hopefully this video was helpful to give you some skills to reduce your procrastination, get to work, and that this is probably, hopefully, the last video that you need to have all the skills that you require, and that you don't need to watch any more videos to procrastinate. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about different types of therapy strategies or the strategies that I use with patients to support them in their psychological well-being, I've recently written a book. It's called Room for Therapy, and it's currently available for pre-order. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out, but otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.